Day 79, Joe DiMaggio. I was actually quite surprised when I first got into tourism when I found out that not very many people know who Joe DiMaggio was. And I don't know, that could be that my guests are very international. It could be that I mean, he's an icon here in San Francisco, but he spent his entire career as a New York Yankee, and again, I'll get to the San Francisco connection in a second, but when I mentioned the woman who he was affiliated with, Marilyn Monroe, everybody recognizes that name. So it's interesting that, well, anyway. So Joe DiMaggio, I think he was the eighth of nine children, born in a huge Italian family. He was born in Martinez, so a suburb in the way East Bay, deep East Bay. And I think he moved to North Beach, which most people know as the historically Italian neighborhood, but was also literally the beach on the north. He moved to San Francisco, that neighborhood, I think when he was a toddler. And he came from a family of fishermen. So interestingly enough, when I learned this fact on the Fisherman's Wharf tour, the very first tour that I ever ran, Trial by Fire, that's when I started to research. We only knew up until my great grandmother's history, on my dad's mom's, my grandma's family tree. Come to find out, there's 3 generations in San Francisco before her, and I knew that my ancestors were from Italy, and I knew that they may have been fishermen, and so that's what, learning this fact is what literally how I stumbled across the fact that there were 3 generations before my great-grandmother. My people moved to San Francisco from Genoa, Italy, 1865. So, the neighborhood that I grew up in, and I'm gonna right now, bring this back to Joe. The Outer Mission, aka the Excelsior, is another older Italian neighborhood. It's not anymore, not anything close, but I remember a few of my neighbors saying that they hung out with Joe DiMaggio in North Beach. He hated working on his dad's boat, so he started playing baseball, and he had a 13-year career with the New York Yankees. I'm not gonna leave this video without saying a couple other things that are perhaps do not put him in the best light, because he was a cocky egomaniac who insisted on being introduced as the greatest living baseball player alive, and he literally punched a guy in the stomach for not saying it, for not announcing him that way. He also was known to put hands on Marilyn Monroe. So it's interesting that people, and that's very well documented. So it's interesting that people only know about the fact that, or the thing that you hear is that he sent roses to her crypt 3 times a week for 20 years. Probably because he felt guilty for beating her up. Okay? So anyway, that's a little bit about Mr. Joe DiMaggio. Last thing I'll say is that there's a really iconic, beautiful church in North Beach called St. Peter and Paul Church. And there is a photograph of the 2 of them, Marilyn Monroe and Joe, in their wedding attire, very much giving the impression that they got married there. That's not the case. They were married at City Hall. They being Catholic, and they had both been married before, they did not get permission to get remarried. So they eloped at City Hall, busted over to St. Peter and Paul Church, and had a photo shoot on the front steps of that church. Anyway, that's a little bit about baseball player, New York Yankee, Joe DiMaggio.